Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. It's Sunday the 5th of June, and it's been a lovely long weekend thanks to the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. I mean, I can't believe that we're nearly at the end of it, Kev, and it started on Thursday. I mean, I feel completely wiped out from it. It's been great and enjoyable and everything, everything that's been ongoing. But how have you enjoyed it?
Well, basically, I missed it. I was in Egypt.
There you go. Not done anything out there. Not even had a little garden party of your own.
No, at the beginning of the week, as you know, I was in the UK with you, and it was nice to see all the bunting and flags, and even one of the hotels I stayed in had a real nice commemorative pictures of the Queen, and even a real size sort of what do they call them, where they have like a cardboard cutout. But I did that, and every time I looked up from the bar, I kept seeing them like, who's that woman there? Like, you know what I mean? It just gets in your head. When I saw the Queen in the cardboard cutout, I had to jump, I have to say, because I thought that was the Queen herself. No, I mean, it's amazing that she's served for as long as she has. And, long may it continue. Let's hope we see the 75th anniversary as well, the Jubilee. I mean, I was telling you in the car, I remember 1977, the 25th anniversary, the Jubilee. That was the first Jubilee, 25 years. So, yeah, amazing. I mean, I was only 9 years old at that time, but we had a big street party and all the bunting out and everything else. So.
Good. Well, we've got a shorter version of the roast today, mainly because it's obviously the celebrations. But today we're joined by Steve Brown, CEO of Orcadian Energy. Welcome back, Steve. How's things with you?
Very good. Very good. Good to be back.
So do you want to give the listeners a bit of a recap about what Orcadian Energy is all about? Because, it's been probably a couple of months since we last had you on. And, it's always good to have a recap.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're an oil and gas company. And we have 3 licenses in the North Sea that are very interesting licenses. What we have on the licenses are actually some discoveries that are poised for development. So we've been through all sorts of work with the Oil and Gas Authority, now called the North Sea Transition Authority. So they've renamed themselves, which slightly drives me nuts, but you have to put up with it. And they've given us a letter of no objection to our selected concept for the development of Pilot. So Pilot is the oil field. It's got 79 million barrels of 2P reserves. It's got all the appraisal work behind it. We're in the middle of the engineering work on designing exactly what the facility looks like. And of course, looking for partners and looking for how to finance the project and take that forward. So that's who Orcadian is, and that's where we are. And we're listed on AIM, and the symbol's Orca.
Orca, yeah, it's a great one. Orca the whale. I always remember it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously it's quite current. We've obviously seen there's been an increase or a massive increase. I think electricity effectively has gone up something like 1,100. It's 11 bagged or something. We were talking about this today in the car. And gas prices have gone absolutely, it's crippling a lot of households, and it's not nice to see, is it? And obviously Rishi's now come under a lot of pressure to kind of backtrack on there and issue what they call these new, windfall tax that were announced as part of his 15 billion cost of living package. Can you talk us through how you think that this, a lot of people said there's going to have a massive impact and a negative effect on North Sea oil and gas companies. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I take a slightly different view from most people. But I have to say, I understand oil companies who have got current production and their tax bills just going up by another 25 percentage points. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to get a 25% increase in your tax rate and a brown envelope from HMRC. That's not a good thing. But there's lots in the industry who are saying this is a really bad move. But I call it a bad move skillfully executed, because as well as putting the tax up, he's put in place some investment incentives that really have a very dramatic impact on the economics of new projects for existing oil and gas producers in the North Sea. And it seems to me that actually, from our perspective, this is actually great news. I mean, it seems counterintuitive that a tax rate going up by 25% is great news. But if you take our pilot project and look at the break-even price per barrel, so this is the oil price you need to have for the whole life of the project to make a 10% rate of return. And for pilot, it's just under $40 a barrel. But if a company that's paying this new levy, it's colloquially we call it a windfall tax. The Treasury, they like to call it an energy profits levy, right? Yeah. So if you're paying this new levy, because of the tax rebates you get and the incentives that Rishi or probably some really smart kid in the oil offshore taxation office came up with this idea, it means that the break-even price for on our project for an energy profits levy paying taxpayer is just $32 a barrel. And if they're paying corporation tax on top of that, there's even more tax rebates, and it takes the break-even price down to $27 a barrel. And you're beginning to get to the point where people say, this project's a no-brainer. I hate that phrase, actually. I really dislike that phrase. And I don't know why I used it. I feel slightly dirty for having used it. But, it's these kind of projects are going to be really compelling.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, right. These projects are going to be really compelling investments for any company that's producing a significant amount of oil and gas.
Yeah,
and the UK continent.
So really, what he's done is he's almost shot himself in the foot, because he now risks raising a fraction of this. Apparently, this $5 billion that he expects from this. Well, it's been described as obviously a complex scheme, but basically, it's going to allow North Sea oil and gas companies that are already benefiting from these huge tax breaks. They could now use these kind of like these loopholes or fresh rules to slash even more of how much they already pay.
You say that, but imagine if that all happened. We'd have lots of new oil and gas coming on stream in the UK. We'd have lots of jobs. There'd be lots of activity, and he would have created a bonanza, both in the oil and gas sector and the wider economy, and more tax to pay in the future. So people describe these things as loopholes, and I've seen climate activists complaining about these investment incentives. But if you care about energy security, if you care about the cost of living for the average person in the street, then these are great moves. These are actually encouraging investment, encouraging new oil and gas development, and really improving energy security. So, the ideal outcome for Rishi is that he raises not a penny of new tax. That's the ideal outcome, because that means he's really opened up a bonanza in the North Sea.
Yeah, so what he's really done is he's written the headline, 25% extra tax for these fat dogs that are getting all the money at the minute. But actually what he's really done is said, guys, I want you to spend that revenue on new projects so that we have our security in terms of oil.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a clever move, really. It really is quite a clever move. Politically, it looks good that Conservatives are being strong and harsh on the oil industry.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're saying, no, spend the money on something, on new projects. So this begs the question, is there enough new projects for them to sink this money into? Or are you going to be one of a few that people are going to want to, or the companies are going to want to chase?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're certainly right up there in the top 5. Woodmac came out with a list of the top 10 projects in the North Sea, ranked by resource, and we were in there in the top 5. There are other projects there, and the thing is, there's not that many big projects, and ours is actually quite a big project. And a lot of people have looked at our project and say, no, the project's too big. But actually, that's its best feature now, because the bigger it is, the bigger the tax breaks.
Yeah.
So I think it'll change the conversations we're having with other oil companies dramatically over the coming months. everyone's still sitting there reeling from having been slapped in the face with a 25% tax uplift. Let's get the Jubilee weekend out of the way. And I think pretty soon after that, people will be ringing up and wanting to know, tell us a bit more about your project, Steve, you know?
So you think, or not you think, the situation is that this windfall tax is coming in this particular tax year. So in other words, it's relevant from the 6th of April.
From right now. Yeah, well, it's the date of the announcement. So when the Finance Act gets royal assent, then any revenue that's been earned since the date of the announcement pays the energy profits levy, but any investment that's made from the date of the announcement gets you that money back plus an 8% uplift on it.
Yeah.
So it's a really clever tax structure.
The worst case scenario is then sort of next, but between now and next May, these people are going to want to be having the project and spending the capital to make sure they don't have to pay the tax.
Exactly. So they want projects that are ready to go. And the great thing about our pilot project is we've been through a long process with the North Sea Transition Authority, explaining to them exactly how we want to develop the field, getting their support for it. And there's a lot of discoveries out there, but not so many projects ready to go. So
do you maybe you don't even want to hear this question, but do you become a takeover target? If that's the case, then somebody just takes you over and says, okay, we'll plow the money into this.
Well, I'm always happy to take money for shares, so I don't rule that out. But to be honest, I actually think it's more likely we get a different structure of deal. So I think the deal structure that will work best for an acquiring company coming in on the project is one where they pay all the capex up to first oil. We get a free carry up to first oil. We don't have to pay the capex back because they want to get the tax reliefs on that. And then we're heads up from that point forward. So we could get to first oil without having to raise any more capital from the markets if we got that offer tomorrow,
Yeah, and basically then you're going to get almost like a royalty payment on the oil then, yes.
You could structure it as a royalty. That might even be the best way to make it work.
Yeah, because then they take everything in terms of the costs.
Yeah.
And you just get $5 a barrel or $10 a barrel or whatever it happens to be.
Or whatever it happens to be. I'm not gonna speculate.
No, I'm picking numbers out of thin air, so don't take my numbers out of the equation because it's not relevant. But I'm just giving.
I mean, $10 a barrel would be jolly nice because that would be $790 million. That would be a nice sum of money.
Yes, that would be a nice sum of money. But I mean, you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get it all straight away. Obviously, that would be paid then over time. Yeah. But so it'd be very nice return.
So I think it's much more likely we have a deal structure where people are farming in, paying the capex, than necessarily trying to buy us in the market. But companies might have different ideas. They might want to do something different.
Yeah. So. But either way, this whole taxation system has basically given you a major advantage in terms of someone wanting to buy you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our project is much more attractive to existing oil and gas companies than it was on Wednesday afternoon.
There's one other thing we didn't talk about, Steve, wasn't there, that was out since we've last talked, which was the report that you provided, Carbon Emission Solutions and the North Sea electrification. Do you want to just talk us through what that really means? Because I think that's a really powerful statement. Yeah,
we spent kind of the first quarter of this year working with lots of partners, actually. So our engineering company, Crondall, Petrofac, Wärtsilä, North Sea Midstream Partners, Enertechnos, I'm sure I've missed someone. They'll be upset with me, whoever it is. For sure. But
we can edit it back in. You can just say a few names at the end, and I'll get it in.
Yeah. We all worked together and came up with a different concept for how to do an off-grid electrification scheme. So there's really two ways to electrify existing platforms. You either have a cable going back to the beach and you buy power from the grid, simple, or you have some local wind farms, a system to provide backup power when the wind's not blowing, and then that electricity goes into the platforms. And the key thing that we were inventing was the system to provide the backup power. lots of other people have ideas about what the wind turbines look like. We actually presented that report at an Offshore Energies UK conference, and we presented it to all the operators. And actually, I've got another presentation tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock with another operator to go through it in detail. And I'd say slowly but surely, operators are beginning to see that, this off-grid option could maybe be the right option. And what I'd say is the Chancellor, not only did he give us a great boost on pilot, but he's given us a great boost on the electrification concept, because one of the advantages of our concept is it's actually, I used to think it was a disadvantage. It's a bit more CapEx up front. That's actually a good thing now. It can be done quicker and you get much, much lower OPEX into the future, which means that you can keep those existing platforms going for longer and contribute to energy security for even longer. So he's given both our pilot project and our electrification project a real boost with the tax reliefs that have gone with the levy. Nobody wants the high tax, but at least if there's these investment incentives, there's something you can do about it. There's something you can do to actually improve the overall financial situation.
And I mean, basically, you've got 79 million barrels of oil at them, I think, that is
proven and probable. Proven and probable.
2p.
Yeah.
2p.
I'm probably the least popular man in the oil industry, wandering around saying this windfall tax is great. But actually, from our perspective, I really think it will make a massive difference.
Yeah, it's good for your project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve Brown, CEO of Orcadian Energy, thanks very much for your time. Pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
So what do you reckon of Orca then? I mean, it's one that we've kind of had, we've talked to Steve before. It seems quite a compelling investment to me. North Sea, big energy crisis going on around the not just around the globe, but, certainly within Europe here, we're seeing energy prices going sky high. There's always been a kind of focus on the North Sea. Obviously, it's viscous oil, so it's a little bit kind of harder to get out the ground. They've got all the technology. Steve's got the technology, the polymer technology to get through that. And pilot, certainly, one thing that struck me about what Steve said was the fact that they were recognized as being in sort of like the top 5 of the fields that are in the North Sea now, which is phenomenal. To have 79 million barrels of proven and probable in that 2P category is unbelievable, really, right now. As I say, with oil and gas prices going through the roof. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, from an oil energy security point of view, it needs to be developed, that project, doesn't it? And what he's basically saying was that the project all of a sudden has become, between 20 and 35% more efficient for whoever wants to buy it. And whoever, or not buy it, but farm in and get all those tax credits. So effectively, they don't have to pay this tax increase or this 25% levy, if you like, that's being put on. So, yeah, I think before, for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, it came to market at 40p. It's still 40p. And he's made a lot of advancements. And I think things are going to happen in the next period of time for them. I think they're going to have a queue of people who then just go, okay, this will save us money and will increase our production. So why not? Makes a lot of sense, I think.
It makes a lot of sense to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the market in general, it's, again, not been particularly good, nothing going crazy, but we've had a few movers. We've had Seed, I think we mentioned last week as well, has done quite well. It's gone into the 7.5p range now from, I think it was in the 4s only a few weeks ago. So, and that was on the news and the announcement of the fact that the gaming, Leap Gaming, is going to be coming good. Eastar Resources is up 20%. And yeah, looking at some of the forecasters, they were saying that should go back up to 6p at least. And yeah, so there are a few things, aren't there? I mean, I was disappointed with Genflow. There's obviously been a bit of controversy around it as well, but not really any volume going into it. Again, it seems to be in this trend of 3 to 7p, and obviously at the minute it's pretty much at the bottom of that with 4.5p. So yeah, not a lot happening really, is there, if we're honest?
Not really. I mean, in terms of volume, it's dried up, hasn't it? The whole market's gone, I don't know what it is. There's just no liquidity. There's no volume. You can say the cliche is, we've already said it, selling may go away. Obviously we're in half-term week as well. We're in Jubilee week, or we've been in that week. So a lot of people who are away on holiday, there's a lot of parents, and that's a reality. So we've got to accept that. But let's see what all this brings after this. Get the Jubilee week out the way, but ultimately, there's a bit of a review of the week in terms of RNSs that have come out that have been interesting. We've got Angle had an RNS this week, which is one stock that's really has moved well. Obviously, they had their Parsotics FDA approval. Then they on Monday they got a partnership established with a major US urology group to conduct clinical studies in prostate cancer. So that's been a really interesting one. They seem to be really making good advances within in that medical world, which is great to see. Kibo Energy, obviously we talked about them. We talked with Louis about a week ago. They had an RNS on Monday morning that said that they've got a long duration energy storage project in South Africa.
That one looked good, I have to say. It basically was going on from the other deal that they'd done for the storage batteries with I forget the name of the company, but something to do with Cube, wasn't it? It was
Cell Cube was the long duration one, but they've got an agreement now with this company called Hasta, like Hasta La Vista, which basically aligns perfectly with the company's strategy to become a significant presence in that long duration energy storage market. So the potential revenue streams that will be coming in for Kibo going forward now looks really good, doesn't it? It looks like this sort of I know there's been a lot of detractors in the past saying no, it's just another dilutory stock, but for me, it does look like things are turning around for this company now in terms of the actual projects that it's winning.
Yeah, definitely. I can see progress. And I mean, also in that energy sector is Mast as well, which is just, to me, crazily valued. It's valued at basically one of the projects pretty much, and they've got 3. So yeah, both Kibo and Mast going into that sort of green renewable energy type of stuff, and it's got to pay dividends. I mean, what was that report? Did you see it on the news that they reckoned there could be a lack of electricity going forward in the winter next year? There just won't be enough electricity. So what are people going to do?
No, unbelievable. I mean, I guess we're lucky in the UK to have, uninterruptible, power in terms of the grid. The grid is relatively reliable. Let's just say that, without tempting fate and, wanting to see any energy blackouts, you know what I mean? Because none of us want that. But ultimately, when Louis was saying to us last week that, in South Africa, every 8 hours, there's an outage for like 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. So, a third of the time a day, or every third period of the day, bang, outage for an hour.
Yeah, it's longer than this. It's at least 2 hours. It's like stage 4 shedding. So every 8 hours, every 8 hours, 2 of those hours, it's not working. So it's crazy. I mean, I said this to you, I think, a long while back when we were talking about Lebanon as well, and the fact that their economy has collapsed. They don't have electricity 22 hours a day. 22 hours a day, they don't have 2 hours only. So if they don't have a means of storage or they don't have generator, then basically they've only got electricity 2 hours of the day. Can you imagine that? Unbelievable.
And I guess one way of looking at that is we're so reliant on this. And so we take it for granted, the fact we can turn a light on, we get light. The fact that we can plug a computer in or a phone to charge and we get it. The fact we can plug our car in, electric car, and charge, from home, right? But ultimately, when you lose power and you lose the grid, for any period, like you say, 4 hours is bad enough. 8 hours is almost, your meltdown. A day would be just traumatic for most people. A week would be just like, oh my word, you realize how much stuff you rely on. You take for granted, like when these storms hit in the last year in the north, bang, people were living without electricity for up to a week, which was, as I said, was, traumatic. And I know you experience it out there in Cairo. You do get that. That's part of your life. You just accept that it's gone down, but it comes back on. Now, ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that these energy prices, maybe that is we should be, is enough to shock us into really thinking, this is like that, it's the unobtainium moment of, we rely on this so much, so it should be blinking. I'm not justifying the cost of it. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of households that are crippled. But what I'm trying to say is that it is so much of a precious resource that maybe it's right that it's worth, or that it you know, it's costing as it is now. Do you know what I mean? Like, forget the windfall taxes, forget the profits that people are making. At what point does it become the liquid gold? You know, and it's always been described that oil has been liquid gold. Are we now seeing liquid gold prices of energy?
Well, all of these things, whether it's gas, whether it's oil, whether it's wind, whether it's, I mean, they're all effectively energy producers, aren't they? So, I mean, the end game is energy for any of these things. So, I mean, and, you know, the whole Russian-Ukraine thing has really put it into focus, I think, that, you know, the West was depending very much on oil from Russia, and gas also, and now all of a sudden that can't happen. So we need other ways. So these green things are going to happen. I mean, hopefully things like HUI and, you know, Hydrogen Utopia and Powerhouse Energy are going to get their act together, and we're going to be able to have stuff through hydrogen as well, you know, through the waste plastics. But again, that will still only be a small component, but all of these things need to start to work, otherwise there's going to be issues.
The other one that was interesting was Blancow Resources, and they had an airborne EM program which commenced at their Kelly Congo nickel project, which, as you know, is they've got the graphite project, and then they've got this Kelly Congo nickel project. So basically, they commenced exploration, synergistic nickel sulfide project, substantial 3,200 kilometers of survey to be conducted, partnering with highly regarded airborne survey firm in SkyTem Apps. And they're targeting increased definition of several targets. So yeah, it's just an interesting start, because ultimately everyone's talked about the graphite project, but this nickel project is not to be underestimated. You know, I think there's a really big, you know, drive. Nickel is a key input metal into that lithium-ion battery, and it's going to remain in high demand, as we know, for very much a long period ahead. Shortages, as we know, as a result of the Russian, you know, the conflict there, as being one of the world's largest nickel producers. Yeah, I think it's really nice to actually see them starting this whole airborne program. What do you think?
Yeah, it's another asset that's in Uganda, isn't it? It's not far away from the graphite. You know, as the crow flies, I think maybe 100 kilometers. So this is obviously a good thing, I think. So yeah, I think it gives it another string to the bow, and it looks very interesting. And we know these magnetic studies now, these overfly magnetic studies, are actually becoming fairly accurate in terms of what they can actually achieve, unlike the stuff that used to happen in the past. So yeah, I think it's very interesting play indeed now. And I mean, we look at the amount of graphite that they should produce in the future. I think there's pre-feasibility study coming out probably in June now, in this month, which will really tell the world that they're ready to go, I think.
Moving on, we've got Galileo Resources had a RNS talking about the exploration update and drill planning at the Shinganda copper gold project in Zambia. So this is a JV, you know, they've been in there planning a JV project. Shinganda Copper, you know, entered into, at the end of last year, it was actually entered into a license agreement. And really, they've just engaged a local drilling contractor to undertake that drilling program to test that pit workings, where there's been historic drilling, which intersected, I think it's like 1% copper over a width of about 28 meters at shallow depth. They're going to test for gold as well as copper, which is obviously a very much a positive. They've also sampled some of the pit workings in the past, which have resulted in historic assay results of around 10.5% copper and 11 grams per ton of gold. So that, you know, there's been some pretty good historics there that they've looked at. And there's been other companies in the past, previous explorers, I think it was Vale of Brazil, that were actually focused on that northwest region of the project. And so, yeah, I think Colin's very much pleased with the outcome of their initial work at that. You know, it's an early project, Shinganda project. And obviously the presence of copper gold is very encouraging. Gold being more elevated than is seen in other projects that he's been involved with in Zambia. And I think there's potential there for like a small open pit resource.
You know, with the way that Galileo is really set up, at the finances of Galileo in terms of its valuation, it's nearly completely represented by cash in terms of its value at the minute. So the amount of potential upside in its projects is quite startling, I think, is what it could be, because they've got deals that have already struck that money's coming in and going to be coming in for another few months. I think that will allow basically the market cap to be represented by cash. So in this market as well, that's going to make it a very strong candidate to buy other resources as well. But this one looks very interesting. I mean, those figures you talked about, 10% copper and 11 grams per ton of gold is phenomenal. Like, that's scary figures in terms of its potential to be profitable. So yeah, very good.
I mean, that's obviously that's historic stuff. So
yeah. But if it's historic, it means it's there. Maybe there's going to be more veins and stuff like that will be there in the future. And Colin obviously thinks Basant's going to do pretty well as well, because he made a purchase there during the week as well, I think, for Basant shares himself.
1 million shares in Basant, so not bad.
He's obviously feeling that one's way undervalued, and he bought some more. So yeah, and he's got plenty of most of the companies he's in, so he's talking the talk, if you like, in terms of what he's got. Yeah,
we got Extract Resources had one out on Tuesday, which is interesting. Obviously, it's an update on Ascot drill results summary, which is very good. Right. They had some decent ones. Basically, I think Colin's comment was that copper gold mineralization is significant in the find that he related it to a Alkane's boulder discovery in 2019, which is interesting to it. Maybe you need to do a bit more drilling into that greenfield porphyry copper discovery. And the picture emerging is that it's basically somewhat different to the racecourse porphyry copper deposit in the north. That Ascot has got a higher grade gold intersection, such as the 14 meters at 1.9, call it 2 grams per ton of gold in hole BRDD 22039. So that's a significant positive economic benefits for Ascot, really. You know, the SP's taken a bit of a beating, as we've seen. I think a lot of people were kind of like relying, or not relying, but expecting some sort of decision to mine, or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, in there. But I think it's just a case of it has to be proved up more and more. The more holes you sink, the more it's proving these things up. And in reality, this whole phase 2 drilling program at the racecourse and Ascot has really sort of like explored this 3 kilometer strike length, which is forming a big copper gold mineralized trend that is comparing, as I say, to the Newcrest. He's even compared it to Newcrest world-class Cadia mine and Alkane's boulder. So really, if you want to look at the potential of this, maybe do a little bit of research into those 2 mines, Newcrest Cadia mine and Alkane's boulder case trend, and that might give us some indication of what the 2 Ascot and racecourse could actually be, in terms of size. So I think that's an interesting kind of comparison. Maybe there's a couple of clues in there. But what do you think on that?
No, I've been reading the groups. There's a couple of guys who are very clued up on extract in the group. I think Andy's one of them, and there's another guy who's on LSE. I forget what his name is, but he was very positive about all of this. I personally think that what's happened is that it's probably going to take a little bit longer now. I mean, we're going to speak to Colin anyway in the very near future, and we'll find out a bit more. But I think ultimately it's possibly going to take a bit longer. But I think nothing has changed in terms of the amount of resource. In fact, the only thing that really has changed is probably the amount of resources going up. Because don't forget, this other porphyry at Ascot wasn't there. How long ago? 6 months, when they started re-drilling it. So, I still think that the potential for extract, and don't forget that most, if not all, of the share price is represented by the gold that's coming out of the ground every month or every quarter that it's valued at anyway, from other projects, So it's almost like the Australian thing is a free hit from this particular situation. So for the share price to have gone down a bit back into the 4s and then bounce back up into the 5s, I think it seems a bit strange, but obviously markets react, so that's what happens.
Moving on to our last one, we had a lovely RNS from Cloudbreak Discovery saying that they'd acquired a 3.25 or 3.25% overriding royalty in the Maston Unit Energy Project, which is an interesting one. Basically, this is a Maston Unit Energy Project located in Texas in exchange for 3.25% overriding royalty. What do we know about that actual prospect itself in terms of, the actual prospects? All we know really, it is a giant billion barrel. They're moving it. It's very interesting because you remember they were moving into this Namibian oil. Do you remember it was Namibian oil, wasn't it? Last time we talked with Kyla, one of the big comments, or one of the big things that we went into, was the fact that they were moving into oil and gas exploration, and I was quite excited about that, because ultimately they've always been about the silver assets. They've been about the lithium brine. They'd taken a stake in these new projects, and it was oil and gas in Namibia, if I remember rightly, and they'd gone into this project into Block 2019, ironically, in Namibia. They would act as a financial partner sitting on this committee, and then explore this whole new kind of Namibian oil and gas district or state. So now when they get this new new RNS that is another project it's basically in a giant billion barrel, almost like a Leviathan field in Cochran County, Texas. It's interesting that they've got that interest. What are your thoughts on them moving into this into oil and gas exploration now in this particular climate?
Yeah, I think you can see that the whole energy side of things is going to be profitable for years to come. I mean, do we think our energy costs are suddenly going to go down in the current marketplace? Don't think so somehow. Anyway, let's move on to our competition, shall we? The first competition was for the share price for Chill Brands. And there was 3 prizes for this, for the closest to the share price at the end of the month. So have a guess what the share price was at the end of the month, Phil.
What, for Chill?
Yeah.
Probably about parity, it started at 2.5, it's probably 2.5 or 2.6. It's
2.5p. So it finished at 2.5p. We have, drum roll, we have 3 prizes, first, second, and third. They're going to be different Chill products and hats and different other things, merchandise that we had. In third place with 2.84 pence as their guest was Dan Broom. So congratulations, Dan. We'll be in touch with you via email. In second place with 2.75 pence was Owen Phillips. Again, congratulations. We'll be in touch and to get your address so we can send the stuff to you. And the winner, or should we say the least optimistic person that was out there, because this was the lowest guess we had, was 2.7p for Jonathan Sharp. So congratulations, Jonathan. The first prize of Chill Brands products and hat and etc. will be on its way to you. We will send you an email, or any of those people, please send us an email with your address, and we'll be posting those out to you. So that was good. That was some of the merchandise we had when we went on our travels to New York.
We obviously had a lot of faith in it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, basically everybody was above 2.5p, and many people 3p, 4p, 5p. I think the highest was 7p. I think that could happen maybe possibly in the next month or so as more news comes out, and obviously the open offer's just come out as well. So I think people thought that might have been completed by now, but it's not going to complete until the middle of the month. But when that completes, I think then hopefully there's going to be more chance of movement upwards.
The next competition was Ben's Creek. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so there was the final share price for Ben's Creek was 91p for the end of the month, and effectively 4 people came within 1 pence of that. We have Henry Gossin with 92p, Sean Wallace with 92p, and Phil Chapman with 92p. And St. J, which was his name on the email, was 90p. So all of these people were within 1 penny of the share price. So I wrapped them all up, threw them in the air, and the one that landed nearest to me was the winner. So, drum roll. The winner of the Ben's Creek prize, which will be a hat, a t-shirt, a hoodie, and some coal, is Saint J. He had 90p. So unlucky the other guys. We are going to run a competition for the end of June now for the last lot of stuff that needs to be given away for Ben's Creek. So we're going to be asking you to send in your guesses. Anybody can do that. So please send in a guess if you wish on admin@thesundayroast.net. What you think the SP will be on 30th of June 2022, and you'll be able to win some merchandise from Ben's Creek. So that's the competitions.
On that note, I mean, I guess there's not much else to be said, really. Wishing you...
No, just hope you all have a happy, safe and fruitful Jubilee weekend, and you've enjoyed yourself and you've celebrated that we've had such amazing and wonderful stability in this country for so long. Not obviously completely because of the Queen, but she brings stability without doubt. So, may God bless her.
I guess what's left of the weekend now, absolutely. So all the best. And, as I say, congratulations again to all those competition winners who are going to be seeing all these goodies winging their way to you in the post. And, keep on listening and, you too can win one of these prizes.
Indeed. Well done.
Have a good one.
All the best.
Brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.